vibration. How are you all? Today I have a very exciting author interview again with one of my favorite people in the world who's like a brother to me. His name is Alex Skaliotis. A lot of you know him from our community in Astoria. There he is. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So good to see you, Alex. Thanks so much for being here with me on this interview today. I just want to I want you to introduce yourself a little bit, tell us a little about yourself, but I'm going to brag on you for a little bit because that's what I do, especially with those people that I absolutely love and adore. So, you guys, Alex is an incredible yoga teacher. He first showed up in my life on a mat in my class and quickly became like family. I love this guy so much and convinced him to do the teacher training because I saw that he had that teacher in him and he just said yes. Like he didn't need much convincing because he loves yoga so much and just loves the philosophy, the alignment, every aspect about it, but mostly I couldn't wait until he got his certification so I could get him on our schedule at the Giving Tree because the guy has a huge heart. So, welcome, Alex. Thanks so much for being here, my friend. And will you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself just so they can know you a little more?
Absolutely. So, yeah, my name is Alex Skaliotis, and thank you for the kind words first off. And
Of course.
yeah, I'm a yoga teacher and also a mindfulness teacher, and those two things for me has always really been one and the same. But now I've delved really into the mindfulness and meditation element purely on its own, in addition to the yoga as well. So those are things that I do to sort of keep myself sane. They've grown with me, and I'm also a loving father of two adult kids that you know really well, Nick
I
and
love
Steph.
them. They're the
Uh,
best. They're the best.
they are really, really great, and live here in Astoria in New York. Also have a career in office furniture that hopefully at some point we'll get out of, but it's actually been okay. And the more energy I put into the things that I love, including community and friends, which connected us together. And here we are again. So it's great to see you on this Friday.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And you wrote, you guys, I can't wait for people to read your story in this book. You're the 11th author in this book. The book is divided up into four sections based on the seasons of the year. But the reader can go through it however they want, so they don't have to go through it sequentially. They can jump around based on what theme really speaks to them. And your week's theme is sacred masculinity, is what we chose as the theme for your story. It's also linked with the heart chakra. I linked every story with a chakra, and yours was the heart, which is just an obvious choice for me because the story is so beautiful. I want you to share a little bit about why this story for you, because I do know Nick, I do know your kids so well, and I just absolutely love them so much. But I don't know if I've ever met a father aside from my own who loves their kids as much as you do. Like it is so inspiring and just so beautiful, the relationship that you have with them. And you know, when the readers read your story, they're gonna see so much beautiful, sacred masculinity. Sometimes we think about the masculine as being this sort of like emotionless, like, you know, sort of poker face, don't show any sort of feeling. And we know, those of us who know about the sacred masculine, divine feminine coming together, we understand that it's so much more than that. So I want you to share a little bit about your story, why you chose that, and you know, without giving too much away about the story, but share about that because it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I have two kids. My son is 22 years old now. Um, and my daughter's 19 years old, actually. And this story is about my son and I sort of growing closer through our own heartache, romantic heartache. And it was sort of his first heartbreak at 16 years old. And he didn't know it at the time, but I was separated from somebody I'd spent almost a dozen years with, who helped me raise my family after I was divorced when my kids were young. Another person that you know really well too.
Mm.
And yeah, so at the time, the story sort of begins with my son kind of, you know, getting broken up by his first girlfriend, and me sort of having to share with him about kind of what I was dealing with, and ultimately trying to sort of coach my son through some healing. And that was a really challenging time. My son and I are dear friends, and he appreciates my perspective. And it was a really tough time as he was going through heartache. And what I realized for myself was the amount of empathy that I had for my son. I was able to find more empathy for myself, which actually was a big part of me getting over that relationship and really healing myself. And just lastly on the masculinity that you talked about, it's something that I bring up a lot in my yoga and my life, because I do feel like men need role models to sort of see like what's appropriate and what's okay. And we certainly have a lot of horrible role models, right? A lot of toxic masculinity out there, and the political strife, and in the corporate strife, and really everywhere. And I was, I was raised by some of that. My father's a great guy, but I was raised by a culture of immigrants, Greek immigrants, and there's a boundary with your kids, and I wanted to break all those boundaries. And the story is really about my son and I sort of helping each other heal through this very strange. And what's interesting is it's happened again later in life. Like we've had sort of romantic challenges that have streamlined. So it's also shown me how connected you are to your community and how much you can learn, not just from your son, but from other people. So that's what the story is about.
Mm, yeah, beautiful. And in the story, it's so beautiful because you're able to share with your son so much about the deeper feelings and the harder feelings that you've experienced, but also just helping him through his own. And uh, I mean, with your son being 22 and Stefania, how old is she now?
She's 19. Yeah.
19. I can't believe she's 19. Um, but with kids, especially this book, for those of you who are watching who don't know about the book, it was inspired during the initial lockdown in March of 2020 of how do we make a difference? Like, anybody who has like a heart of service or loves helping people or gets the value in themselves, what they get out of helping others during that time probably thought something similar to what I thought, which was like, how can I help? Like everything seems like it's going like catching on fire. What can we do? And I just heard get people to focus on the resilience because every one of us has a story. Every one of us has gone through something really significant in our lives that wasn't easy. We've overcome it, and it's brought a perspective to our lives that we would have never had we not faced that challenge and kind of tackled that hurdle. And so reached out to my community and friends and students and colleagues, et cetera, and said, you want to write a story like 1,000 words or less, which I know is hard because to put a significant story into 1,000 words or less is quite a feat. And then it turned into this book where it ended up being 52 authors. So we made one story for every week and turned it into a weekly guide to alchemize the human experience and called it Raise the Vibration. So for that's what the book is about. But like I'm seeing, and all through the statistics, as we've all seen over the last 2 years, the rates in suicide have gone up astronomically, especially amongst young people. And none of us can avoid pain, no matter what we go through. It's like life will continue to throw us challenges. It is really about our resilience, and that is even with our heart health, like our physical heart health, it's not about keeping things mundane or like within a little tiny wavelength. It is about our recovery. That's why when we work out and our heart rate goes up, it's about the recovery. That measures our overall health. So feelings are the same way. I know you know so much about this, Alex. So I want you to kind of talk about what message you want to leave with the readers from your story, especially in today's day and age with what people are really struggling with, mental health more than ever before.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great point. And I've recently have started doing a meditation every Sunday night at 8 p.m. for friends, and I'll send you the invite as well. Just a community meditation, no charge, no cost, just a way for people to share. And whether it's I struggle meditating, and you can realize that you're not the only one, or talk a little bit about here's somebody else's story. And I think what we really lack is community. There's so much self-help out there. We're not in a shortage of information, but we are in a shortage of community. And the beautiful thing about the very technology that's designed to distract us and to to get us to become more shoppers, better shoppers, and designed to spend more time on the phone, is that it also can be used as a tool to connect us to other people. And when we do connect to other people, we realize that we are so much more the same than we are different, that what makes me afraid makes you afraid. And in that, we get binded together. And that's really, for me, what I'd love to leave the reader with, is that even a father and a son can share over heartache, and me at 45 and him at 16 and at the time, and we can deal with deal with our hearts breaking simultaneously, and we can talk about it in a way that men typically don't talk about it. And I really have this, of course the world needs it, but men specifically, I think, really struggle because the world sort of has told us in some certain way that we're not allowed to cry, we're not allowed to be vulnerable, we're not allowed to feel certain feelings. And I think in many ways we're struggling for outlets, and that's really what the story is, a call to find connection even in that relationship. And that's ultimately what I'd love to leave the reader with.
So beautiful, and it takes such courage. And I mean, cœur is heart in French, right? Cœur. So it is, that's what is required for us to share from our hearts, is courage. And especially, like you said, for men. I mean, you were part of our yoga studio, the Giving Tree. The number one focus is inclusive community. That was the thing that we founded everything else on from day one until the day we closed. And that, and we had a women's circle now in its 20th year, and Anthony tried to start him, and so it's not something that's so acceptable or encouraged in our culture. And yet we look to other cultures and we do see men coming together and celebrating in different ways that is just not super American. That's not usually the American way. And that's just the dynamic that we have. It's not to make it wrong or right. There's always a benefit and a cost to every culture, every way of doing things. Even some people will be like, oh, well, I don't think you should share with your son as much as you should share with it. And it's like, you know what? There are benefits to every single approach to parenting, to living your life, and there's always a cost. And if we can kind of get out of that polarity thinking, and at the beginning, before, as I'm introducing all the stories in the introduction of this book, I say, watch when you're judging other people's stories or equating yours and saying, well, mine's story is not as devastating or challenging as that story, because none of us, you've heard me say this a million times in teacher training and workshops and etc., that we don't know what it's like to be in each other's shoes. And the more we can share from our heart, especially with men, we can know that we're not alone, that we're in it together, that we have support around us, and that lack of alienation is the key. That community is the key to us feeling like we can go on another day if we are at that ledge.
Yeah, well said. Well said. It's and I think, I just always jokingly sort of say, if the answer were outside, if the answer were in the shopping and the culture, sort of the mass culture, we would have found it by now. Like the
Right.
answer is really inward, and it's in our brothers and sisters. And I think it's
Yeah.
one of the beautiful things that always gives me a lot of solace, is that regardless of somebody's ethnicity and religion and where they're from, we all want the same things. We all want our kids to prosper. We all want to, see the sunrise. We all want to get
Mhm.
outside. We all want the same things. And I think, especially after the isolation that we've been through forced upon us, um, there's definitely a shift that's taking place, and it's scary. I feel it too. It feels like the ground's moving under our feet, but it feels like a time of where there's a lot of potential out there, and that gives me a lot of hope. And I think there's a lot of kids out there. You talked about some of the challenges, but I think these kids are looking for a different way because they want something different than their parents wanted. Again, not to say that what their parents wanted was bad, but I think they want to make different choices, and that also gives me a lot of hope.
I agree completely, Alex. It's frustrating to me personally, when I hear like we're going to have an entire generation of kids who are going to be stunted in this way or this way. And it's like, yeah, every generation goes through what they go through. and you can alchemize it. You can pull out extraordinary perspectives and breakthroughs in all different realms of life, because you meet your obstacle, whatever that is. And yes, will there be challenges because of what we faced the last 2 years? 100%. We're seeing developmental challenges already proven, hands down, that there are developmental challenges already, and social challenges, etc. But what's the silver lining? What's the gold that's in all of this too? And for us to reach more deeply into our hearts and know our own story. I mean, that's how this book began, is like focusing on our story. And because I know you like your family to me, I know that you're somebody who does a lot of soul searching, and you love that and you get the benefit of it. And some people are very scared to go there. I know every time I take on a new coaching client, they have the number one fear that I had too when I ventured down this path 20 plus years ago, which is, I don't know what I'm going to find, and I don't know if I'm going to get stuck there. And I don't know if I'm ever going to recover if what I find is too much for me. But if we can start down that path, and it happens every single time I take on a new client, and every single time without fail, they find the freedom when they're exploring themselves and understanding and self-reflecting. And in writing this story for you, at the end of the book, there's actually some blank pages for the reader to author their own story. It's something that's passed down through generations since indigenous times, that we would share stories in order to process our grief, in order to share our wisdom, in order to teach something that we had gleaned and we want to pass on to the next generation so they don't repeat our mistakes. And I mean, you're somebody, as a father, Alex, who allows your kids to stand on your shoulders because you're not afraid to share your humanity, where you made your mistakes and where you also succeeded and what really worked for you. So I want you to share, just, kind of in closing with the people who are watching today, and also on replay, is what did you get out of writing your own story? You're a poet as well, so you're used to putting your emotions and your thoughts, and penning them down. But what was your experience of that? What did you get out of it?
I think the writing, there's a beautiful quote that I love that says, the poem has a brilliance that the poet does not have. In other words, you start writing, you have an idea, and all of a sudden you're 3 or 4 pages in. And I actually typically use a keyboard. I've been told by people I should write, but I do use a keyboard just to keep it in note sections and things like that. But what I find is there's a genius in not me. It's not me. It's something that's coming through me. There's a wisdom. And the next thing you know, you're writing truth that you didn't actually know that was inside of you. And and to do this as a habit, it's something that I think we all can gain from the journey inside. And yes, it is scary to sort of see what's there, but I also feel like we're made of such tough stuff. Just the fact that you and I are having this conversation, that our bodies, our DNA have been through, generations and millennia, and here we are having this conversation. There's a wisdom here that's away from intellect, away from, the mind and the rationalizations and the narratives that we can create. And focusing on that and making that something that's part of your existence is so healthy. And it can sound super fancy, but people have been doing this, as you said, in cultures for millennia, taking notes, writing stories, transposing information. And it's something that, for me, it's not something I did as a kid. It's something I did as an adult. And I will go back now and reread things and realize that there's so much to learn even from revisiting, because we're always changing. And to have a timestamp about a time in your life is just something that I'm so blessed that I do it. And I've encouraged my children to do it and encouraged my friends to do it. And it's just a beautiful gift. And we all can't be Hemingway if that's your cup of tea. He's not even my cup of tea, actually, but it's something that we all have a story to tell. And I think the more vulnerable we can be, the more raw we can be, the more beautiful those stories are to share. They don't have to be perfect. It's not. I don't think we want perfect stories. I think we want messy stories. We're messy people, messy creatures living through a messy world. and that story needs to be, shouted from the rooftop, if to no one else, to yourself, but maybe to a few close friends too, because I'll share my stuff occasionally, and it's a real joy to share it with certain friends and hear their reactions and see what they find, and all of that, including the story that I wrote for you, because it was Kelly that kind of connected the dots for me, that you're not just helping your son, you're helping you. Don't you see that? And I didn't see that. So again, community, vulnerability, friendship, it's all such a beautiful gift.
Oh, I love that. Because we all have different perspective. That's the brilliance of us all being in separate form and what we don't have when we're in oneness. There is a different opportunity here in this life to have that different experience of our individual view, our individual reality. So,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I
It,
adore
it's
you. You know
individual,
that.
and yet it's also close together too, right? It's so
Yeah,
powerful, so powerful.
so much common ground if we just take a moment to stop identifying with our position and rejecting somebody else's experience and then just finding that common ground that we all share. So, well, thank you so much, Alex. It's so lovely having you
It's a
on and just spending some
pleasure.
time with you because we never spend time enough, I know, together now living in different
I
states.
know, I know. It was a
But
pleasure to do this with you, and I even talking about it and talking like this was really made my day. So
Oh, wonderful. Just conversation sometimes can raise your vibration too. If you're talking with somebody who, that's the focus, rather than we can take our vibration down and tank it when we're complaining with one another. I mean, we need to vent, we need to process what we're feeling, but there's such
sure,
generative
sure.
language possible with one another too. So I feel the same way. And I look forward to seeing you next month. Woohoo! The book's at the
Yes,
printers. It's getting ready to be shipped out. And
so
those of you, we just started our pre-sale on Wednesday. So it just got launched. There's free shipping if you order by the 26th of June. So, my dear, thank you so much again. And thank you to all of our viewers if you're watching it live or post. And until next time, keep raising the vibration. And before you go, where can they find you online so they can follow you, Alex?
yeah, I'm on Instagram at Alex_yoga_mindfulness. I teach yoga here in Astoria, and I teach mindfulness on Zoom, and looking to do more of that. And it was an honor to spend some time with you. I miss you, sister.
I miss you, bro. Can't wait to give you a hug next or later this month. No, it'll be
Thanks,
next month
thanks.
because you don't get back until late. All right, early next month. All right, my love. Mwah, love you. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and we will see you all soon.